I don't know if you're familiar with the name Todd Henry. I first discovered him years ago down in our garage working out and listening to podcasts back in the early days of podcasting. At the time, I was still processing what I'd been through. The whirlwind of having a major label record and publishing deal, the thrill of radio hits, and the jarring reality of being ejected from the very system I'd always dreamed of joining. Todd's words stopped me in my tracks. He spoke about creativity, about finding your voice, and building structures in your life to make creative work possible. You know, after the highs and lows of chasing chart positions and unit sales, what Todd was talking about, for me, was like finding a well in the desert. And after listening to his podcast, The Accidental Creative, for a while, it's now called The Daily Creative, I posted a thank you to him on social media, and he replied, letting me know he was familiar with my music. Over the years, like millions of other people, I've found nourishment in his work, in his books like Louder Than Words, Die Empty, and The Accidental Creative. I could spend an entire episode talking with Todd about his extraordinary body of work over the past 20 years. But as our friendship grew, I learned something that caught me completely off guard. Before his career as an author, podcast host, and speaker, Todd's original dream was to be a musical artist. And he wasn't just dabbling. He was on the cusp of breaking into the major record label and publishing world. Then came a turning point that forced him to navigate a profound shift in identity. Something I know from experience is no small task. In this episode, Todd brings the same clarity and depth to this transition that he's brought to all of his work. It's full of rich insights for anyone wrestling with their own path. If you're searching for what you're meant to do in life, I think you'll find Todd's story both enlightening and encouraging. I know I certainly had a few light bulb moments myself. Here's my conversation with the brilliant and prolific Todd Henry. I'm excited to be talking to you, I think maybe in a way that you usually don't have a conversation about, because it was really surprising to me when we started to get to know each other to learn about your whole history in Nashville and that you're a piano player and have really dove in the deep end of the music business. And I've already told my audience how I was introduced to you working out in our garage and listening to podcasts, which I've really been a fan of, Todd, since, you remember iPodder X?
Oh, of course, yeah.
When I discovered that podcasting, I remember we were at the beach one year and I discovered iPodder X. And as a fan of personality radio, you know, I think we both grew up with a lot of that, right, where not necessarily guys who were just spinning records, but people who had personality shows that you could hear their personality. As soon as I heard my first podcast, I was hooked. And it wasn't that many years later. It was a few years later, I guess, that I discovered working out down here, Accidental Creative. And man, your voice has really been, you've really been a great voice in my head, as well as since we've become friends. But man, you've done some amazing work, my friend.
Well, I appreciate that. And it means a lot. And I remember when you first reached out to me and, you know, similarly, I was obviously very familiar with your work going all the way back to Wheeling Jamboree and, you know, and your, you know, extensive discography that was so inspiring to me. And so then when you reached out, I was like, wait a minute, this is not like the Lionel Cartwright. There's no way this is the Lionel Cartwright that's like reaching out to me or connecting with me. So yeah, it's been such a joy getting to know you and, you know, sort of learning from your experiences and all that as well. So yeah, it's been a tremendous amount of fun.
Well, I've listened to a lot of conversations that you've had online, on YouTube, your talks. I saw a great one here in Nashville several years ago, I guess. But the thing that has really blown me away about you, Todd, apart from your work, which we'll get into, which is an amazing body of work, the podcasts, the books, the coaching, everything. It's amazing. But from musical artist to musical artist, one of the things I really want to drive home on this podcast, Todd, there's about 2 or 3 things. One is that there's more ways to measure creative success than just fame and money. That's a biggie.
Right.
But also, you're like a case study in this other avenue that I really want to go down a lot. And that is making the shift from a musical artist to some other expression of those creative gifts. And we both know, as anyone knows, and I really hope this reaches, even if it reaches a handful of people, I hope it helps them. I know it would have helped me as I went through this transition. But to go from, it's such a consuming vocation, occupation, right? To be a singer-songwriter, you have to be in all the way. Eat, sleep, and breathe it. So my question is, man, for you to reinvent yourself in such a compelling way in such a strong presence that you've had in the creative world, especially the creative coaching world, what did that look like, Todd, to go from the intensity of pursuing a musical career to where you ended up? I could spend the whole episode just listening to you unpack this.
So so I think it's probably important to contextualize a little bit, because I had nowhere near the renown or the degree of success that Lionel Cartwright had in his music career. I was never able to, basically, as you know, like, it feels like you're always, when you're pursuing a career in Nashville, to your point, there's never a moment when you can let up. There's never a moment when you can stop chasing. There are very few moments ever, even once you achieve quote unquote success, where you can feel like it's safe to take your foot off the gas. It is, 100% chasing all the time. And I was, as is typical story, right? Like, I was sort of in that position where it's like, as successful as you can be without ever being successful in the music business, meaning, in the sense of like, I was able to make a living, which is great. And we were sort of I was always, this is a story of like 1,000 people in Nashville right now, or probably 5,000 people in Nashville right now, like always on the verge of like, something is going to happen, something good is going to happen, this is going to be great, right? But to your question, I think what was driving me, the thing that I've discovered that made great musicians great, when the people I was around, people I was hanging around with who have gone on to tremendous success, is that they really, at the heart of it, they were really driven by the music. They were really driven by their love of their craft. And yes. If they had 10 minutes, they were picking up a guitar and they were like learning something new, or they were practicing their scales, or they're doing something, right? Like, they were doing something with their instrument always. That's just what they gravitated toward when they had any spare time. And that was never me. I loved to entertain. I loved to be on stage. I loved to impact people. I loved to influence people. I loved like the performing part of it, but it wasn't really the music part of it that really drew me. So I'm getting to your question, which is what I've discovered is the threads that tie that together with what I do now, which is basically, I get on an airplane, I fly to a city, I get up in front of a bunch of people, I teach them, I entertain them, I hopefully educate them and help them be better at what they do. I am doing now the exact same thing that drew me to music back then. The only difference being, this is a better vehicle for impact, because it's more closely aligned with, I think, how I'm wired and kind of what I want to see in the world. But it's funny, because I think that had I continued chasing after music, and had I achieved like my goals, I don't know that would have been like, I may have ended up doing exactly what I'm doing right now anyway, because I think I've unwittingly stumbled into the thing that I am uniquely wired to do. So I guess the way to answer your question is the transition actually has been pretty easy to what I'm doing now, from the standpoint of like, I feel like I'm doing the same things now that I was doing then. I'm just doing them using a different vehicle, right? I guess in a way. So that would be the first thing. But I would say the season of transition was difficult, because there's this thing I talk about sometimes where it's like, sometimes you have to be brave enough to bury the butterfly, right? And I feel like, the story went like this, right? It was like late 90s. I was playing music. I was having a lot of fun. I was writing songs with some people who went on to become really great songwriters in Nashville and had a lot of success in Nashville. I was getting the chance to like play some really fun big shows with some like really fun big artists and like in front of thousands of people, and then also filling that in by playing at like the local bowling alley on Thursday night in order to make a little pocket cash or whatever. So it's like, I mean, you know the story. It's like you do what you have to do in order to be able to make a living. And I met my wife and we agreed like, probably this is not going to be the avenue for being able to support a family long term, probably, right? Like it didn't look like this was maybe going to be the best avenue. So we set a timeline. We said a year. If we don't see any momentum, then you're going to try to figure out something else maybe to do with your life other than doing music. The year came and went, and I was still doing about the same stuff, similar thing. Like we had a head of A&R from a couple of labels who were coming to shows and continuing to sweet talk and talk about how things were going to happen. We had a manager who was kind of working, but it's the same thing that had been happening for like 3 or 4 years at that point. And there weren't any breakthroughs. It was always like, we're just waiting for things to line up, or we're just waiting for, but we're really excited about you. And, head of A&R for Sony Nashville's like carrying my guitar on and off stage for me and like sweet talking me and doing all kinds of stuff. And I'm just like, but at that point, I just realized this is what it's going to be for the next 5 years of my life. Like I'm probably not going to, and now I'm old enough where I'm ready to get married. I'm ready to have a family. So I had to basically say goodbye to this thing I've been chasing for a long time. And when I say bury the butterfly, what I mean by that is I was on a walk one day and I saw this butterfly, a dead butterfly by the side of the road. And I don't know why, as I was walking, but it really was like this perfect butterfly just like laying there, but it was dead on the side of the road. Wow. And I felt compelled to like bury this butterfly. I was like, man, something that beautiful shouldn't just be laying out like decaying, in the open air. So I buried the butterfly, and the thought came to me in the wake of that sometimes when dreams die, we just kind of let them fester in the open air. We just kind of let them, we just kind of move on like nothing happened. And we just kind of continue to let those dreams kind of fester in the open air. Sometimes we need to be brave enough to just bury the butterfly, these beautiful things that just need to be buried. We need to say, okay, I'm going to mark the moment. I'm going to bury this thing and I'm going to move forward. And I think for me, that was a difficult transition period because I did not transition gracefully from chasing music to what was next. And that was really difficult. That season was really difficult for me. And I think I had a lot of frustration and even resentment that like I was having to make this choice, even though I knew it was the right thing. But still, I just kind of resented the fact that I was being forced into making this decision.
Right.
And it was 100% the best decision I ever made. And ended up as a creative director for a handful of years. In the midst of that time, started a podcast in 2005, which you started listening to probably not very long after that.
That's
so that was 20 years ago.
Yep.
Started the podcast in 2005, and the podcast took off, which was great, and got interviewed and got to go speak in a couple places, and then got offered a book deal, and that was in 2009.
Wow.
And really, it's just kind of been, off to the races since then in a way. I mean, the ups and downs, of course, like any business, but I would say, you ask about the transition. I would say the transition itself, like what I'm doing, perfectly natural transition. The season of transition was really difficult because I had to let go of one sense of who I thought I was in order to move towards something else that I realized I actually was. Not the Todd I wished I was, but the Todd that I actually am, kind of thing.
Wow. Wow, there's so much there. Thank you for being so candid. It's funny, when my major label chapter, which is a very small chapter of my life, when that ended, I share your experience. That was a very difficult transition, and you just nailed it. The reason it was difficult for me was probably for 20 years, like back to my preteen years. It's like George Bailey. I know just what I'm going to do, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it happened. So it only reinforced that, man, this is what I was supposed to do. It's an identity. Mm-hmm. I always feel like I went through an identictomy in those years because even the A&R guy, my producer at the label, said, well, he was born to do this. And then when that ceases to be the case, that can be quite a thing to deal with. If you don't mind, just stay on that a bit, because I think there's a lot of folks out there. You would know more than I. You talk to a lot of people about this exact kind of thing, Todd. I'm intrigued by how you said you kept thinking even before your last year deadline, that you want to see things happen, and the same things keep happening, the same kind of carrot and a stick, or whatever you want to call it. But then when you said you switched over to this other track, things did start to happen.
Right.
What would you say to somebody out there, Todd, that things are not happening? This is a thing I really want to address on this podcast. Yeah. Somebody has a creative, I don't say bent, because I think humans are creative, and I'd love to talk to you about that. But somebody has had a taste of employing that creativity or applying that creativity, and then that thing goes away. Is it realistic? How realistic is it to expect some kind of reinforcement, something to happen that would let you know, oh, maybe I'm on the right path now?
Yeah. I think it depends. And so I'm hesitant to give any advice that sounds declarative, because I think it's going to be different for everyone. I know Seth Godin, who has been a mentor from afar for me, and I know has been for you as well. And Seth has at critical moments in my life, we've had conversations that have really transformed my thinking on things. But he wrote a great book called The Dip that came out, I don't know, somewhere in the 2000s, tiny little book. But he talked about the difference between a cul-de-sac and a dip, right? So there's a difference. Like anytime you're doing something difficult, when you're doing creative work, you're pursuing a creative career, you're trying to break into an industry, something like that, you're going to go through a dip. You're going to have all this energy at first, and it's going to seem like everything is great and everything's, I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing and all this. And then you're going to hit the hard part. And the hard part is when you have to be persistent and you have to push through the dip. And eventually, ideally, you push through the dip, you learn, you make your connections, and then it's sort of this slow, gradual slog to get to the other side of the dip. But eventually you get to where you're going. And that's kind of the story of Lionel Cartwright, right? In the sense, like the story of your music career, in that you set out to do a thing. I mean, you had to, I'm sure, play a lot of clubs and do a lot of stuff that probably were like really hard, like a lot of like 3 a.m. nights and just like schlepping gear all over the place and like whatever. Like that's the dip. The dip is like, and it's funny. I don't want to go in too much into like country music then versus like country music now, but like just the degree of weathering that the average artist had from just like playing like random little clubs in the middle of like rural southeastern Ohio or random clubs in the middle of like rural Kansas, and just like having to figure out how do I make people pay attention? It's like there's a kind of weathering that happens that really sort of like tests you in the dip. And when you push through that, when you get to the other side, like you're mature in a way that like you're ready for whatever happens, like you're ready for the success on the other side of the dip. So that's the dip. You don't want to quit in a dip because if you're quitting in the dip, you're quitting because it's just hard. That's why you're quitting. You're quitting because it got hard and I don't want to deal with the difficulty. But according to Seth, there's a difference between the dip and a cul-de-sac. A cul-de-sac is when you turn down a road and you're just going around and around and around and around. And you're not quitting at that point because it's hard. And you're not quitting because it's like, well, it's not worth it to me anymore. You're quitting because you're like, this isn't going anywhere. Like it's plain for me to see that no matter what I do, I'm just going to keep going around and around and around and around. And so that was kind of where I was. It wasn't for a lack of trying. I wasn't quitting because it was hard. Like I was doing ridiculous things. I was literally driving to Nashville for a writing session, 4 hours doing the writing session and turning around driving back. Like I would do crazy things in order to like try to make things work. So it wasn't a lack of trying. It was just, I felt like I was in the cul-de-sac. And that's why my wife very wisely said, we're going to drive around this cul-de-sac for another year, and then we're going to try to find a different street because, I don't feel like this is really going anywhere. So my advice to people would just be like, identify if you're tempted to quit right now, are you quitting because it's hard, but there is a path. It's just going to take a lot of effort and a lot of work, and you got to find your way through it. Or are you quitting because you feel like you're in a cul-de-sac and like, it doesn't matter how much effort I put in. I'm just going to keep going round and round and round and round because this isn't where I'm supposed to be. That was where I got to. There are some people who quit in the dip and they regret it deeply because they're like, I just didn't want to put in the effort or the work or whatever. That was never me. I was willing to put in the work and the effort. Same with the publishing industry. Like for crying out loud, once I got into book publishing, I mean, when I was offered the opportunity to pitch a book to Penguin Random House, I went away every weekend. We took all of our vacation time and I went away every weekend for multiple weeks in a row to just sit and work on that book proposal because I knew this is my opportunity. Like this is the equivalent of me getting like a showcase, a private showcase in front of like every major head of every major record label, right? And they're going to be bidding for this was my opportunity in the publishing industry. I had a chance to be in front of like the prestige publisher of business books. And so I took every opportunity to get it right. And worked really, really hard writing that book and really, really hard making the book successful. And fortunately it was. And then that creates its own kind of momentum, right? But I've had other dips, Lionel, like my first book, The Excellent Creative, did really well. Die Empty did super well. Louder Than Words came out and it did not do well right out of the gate. And it was just like it was a dip for me, which is I think maybe the book that you like the most, which is really funny. And that's like
my favorite Todd Henry book. Yes.
Yeah. And it's funny because that's the one that like a lot of really successful people like yourself reach out to me and say, that's my favorite of all of your books.
Wow.
But it wasn't the massively popular book. So I thought I was writing to a certain audience, and it turns out I was writing to like people who needed to read that book, which tend to be people who are a little farther in their career, maybe have achieved some success, and they needed somebody to write a book for them about how to make their work resonate again, how to reclaim their voice. But that wasn't what I intended to write it for. That's just what it ended up being for. So a smaller audience, but maybe like a more prestigious audience, that book was for. But that was a dip for me, and I had to ask the question, am I going to slog through it, or am I going to, or am I going to quit? And I kept going. And fortunately I did, because other books have been on the back end that have been much more successful.
I think what that book did for me, it came at a perfect intersection for me, Todd. Just speaking personally about my own intersection with the book. I was signed in the wake when I met, it was with Tony Brown at MCA, who was wonderful with me and generous with me.
And was the man at the time.
Yes, yes. And I'll never forget this. He handed me, 5 cassettes. Remember those? He handed me Steve Earle's Guitar Town.
Oh.
Lyle Lovett. And third, Nancy Griffith's Lone Star State of Mind. Steve Warner's Life's Highway.
Mm-hmm.
And George Strait, I think it was Oceanfront Property, the album, the cassette. And I was still I was a green writer, a young writer. But Todd, when I took those cassettes home and I heard Guitar Town, I felt myself being at a point in the road. I couldn't look back. I had gotten to work in Knoxville. I did a bunch of TV shows for the Nashville Network, and I got to work with legendary songwriters, Boudleaux and Felice Bryant, which changed my life. Because I'd been, like probably you were, right? You come up through the ranks and you're around a lot of musicians. You're around a lot of performers, a lot of singers.
Mm-hmm.
I was around a few writers, but not a lot of songwriters. And at the time, they were writing a Broadway play because Roger Miller had a big hit with Big River. So they thought, well, we'll write Broadway plays. So I got to sit in Boudleaux's basement in Gatlinburg and chart out the songs. And he hired our band from the show I was on to demo the songs in a studio. And it just blew my mind because I knew full well who I was sitting there with. Anyway, sorry, I don't want to make this about me.
No, that's a great story.
So when Tony handed me that, and I had gotten signed at a small little publisher that the Oak Ridge boys owned, we never saw or met them, they just owned it. It was Silverline Goldline, and Steve Earle was at that publishing company. So I was there, and he was there right in the wake of Guitar Town. But after listening to Guitar Town, and Lyle especially, I just thought, I've got to write. I want to be a singer-songwriter. Mm-hmm. And in all truthfulness, that's not the way Tony envisioned me. And I get it, because he'd seen me on this TNN show, and but it's like I couldn't not want to do it. Mm-hmm. So fast forward, by the time your book came, what year was Louder Than Words? Do you remember?
Louder Than Words was 2016.
Oh, wow. I thought it was earlier than that. Wow.
No, it was 2016. Maybe 2015, but I think it was at least 2015, maybe 2016.
Wow. It made such an impact. I feel like it's been there.
I take that back. It was 2015. It was because the first 3 were 3 years or 2 years apart. So 2011 was the Axon Creative, 2013 was DIMD, and 2015 was Louder Than Words.
Awesome. Well, your encouragement to any creator, and if you're a creator out there, I highly encourage you. Well, you want to check out all of this guy's books, but Louder Than Words, especially if you're any kind of a writer, a songwriter, a writer, even a poet. It was so amazing in its encouragement to find your voice. And listen, when you're in the same graduating class in country music as Garth Brooks, that's a challenge, because the pressure to sell was immense, because here's a guy who was outselling most rock acts historically. It was unbelievable. But
and Clint Black, right? You were in the same class as Clint Black as well. Yeah.
The three of us were nominated for Best New Male at the ACMs out in LA in that year. And Clint won because he just had like 4 number ones off Killing Time. Mm-hmm. But soon thereafter, Garth exploded, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
But along these lines, and it kind of dovetails off what we're talking about, how you found this other expression. And I love hearing you say that it actually was a better fit for you, given the whole picture. And also, let me not address the fact that you had a spouse that, number one, you could talk these things through intelligently and very perceptively, but also that you listened to her. And it sounds like she gave these with a lot of love, truth and love.
Yeah.
But what would you say, and as far as someone finding that expression, like maybe they're in an expression and it is or isn't working. Let's say it isn't working. What's some good steps and practices, Todd, that, I know folks who started a business who were both incredible musicians, and it's been incredible, and actually funded them now doing more music. But what does that look like for someone to say, I love John Mayer's first EP, the title, Inside Once Out.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about soul searching and finding what the heck does this thing want to be that wants to get out of me?
Yeah. So I think there are a couple things in that. I'm going to riff a little bit, and maybe some of this will be useful and some won't be. But I think we have to be really careful to parse between creative success, however we define that, and commercial success, however we define that. There are people who are like, listen, I just want to make music for the rest of my life, and I might achieve some success with it, but if I just am able to like have enough money to buy groceries and put a roof over my house, and my family's happy with that, and we're good, and it's all good, and I'm doing the thing I'm wired for, great. If your aspiration is, and I want to be known for what I do, and I want to be recognized in my industry, and I want to have success as it's defined by the industry, which is a very different thing. And honestly, it's a little bit like chasing vapor anyway, because, what looks like success, or what seems to be success, as you and I know, sometimes is fabricated, and like it's not always what it appears to be from the outside, right?
Totally.
But regardless of that, so I think like creative and personal success in pursuing a calling, pursuing a mission, that can look like, I'm going to play clubs for the rest of my life, and that's fine. I love it because that's what I'm wired to do, and that's not settling. That's me actually doing the thing I'm wired for, and I love it, and I love bringing joy to people, and I love music, and I love whatever. Okay, great. But if you look at the portfolio of the body of work that you're building, and you think, okay, I want to have impact that scales. I want to have an impact beyond myself. At some point, that I'm just going to play music for the rest of my life can become a cul-de-sac, right? And so it's like, I'm just kind of driving around and around and around. I need to make a right turn at some point so I can do something different. So people with talent, which is everyone has talent in some way, we usually can identify some resonant moments in our life when we've had deep impact in some way. So if I look back on my time playing music, for example, if I look at the most resonant moments of my time playing music, it wasn't like some killer song that I wrote or some amazing guitar riff that I ripped off or whatever. It was like me entertaining people. It was me like connecting in some human way with people. And, to your point, I led the band from guitar, but I also played piano. So I would like play Jerry Lee Lewis and play with my elbows and play with my feet and my butt and the whole thing. Every once in a while I would like do that kind of thing. But that was purely fabricated to like connect with and entertain people, and people loved it. They thought it was great. Right. But the thing I've always been really good at is basically like being a presence on stage, more so than like a musician. And so as I look at those moments of resonance in my life, and then the other thing, what's really funny is like, I remember a manager coming from Nashville to come and like do some, come to some shows I was playing like in the Midwest, came up from Nashville. And I remember I was showing her because we were doing some shows with Diamond Rio, and she was working with the management company that managed Diamond Rio. And so she came up, and I remember I was showing her like all of these like self-development books I was reading, and like I showed her like on the wall of my apartment, like I had like these tenets that I would follow in my principles. These are like the principles that I'm trying to build my life and my career by, all this stuff. So I look back on that now and I'm like, I didn't know any other musician in my world who was like reading self-development books, history books, business books, like had tenets that they like put on their wall that like, these are the guiding principles of my career. Like I didn't know anybody else doing that.
Wow.
So as I look back on that, I think, okay, I was wired in a very unique and specific way that probably didn't find its best expression in the music business. Knowing, what I know about the music business, it probably was going to find form somewhere else. So my advice to people would be, there's a long way to get to this, but my advice to people would be, look at those moments of resonance in your life, in your career, the thing you've been doing, and ask yourself, okay, what is the common thread that connects all of those? What is the common thread that makes me especially resonant in those moments? And how does that apply to this other thing or something else that I might want to do, a place where I can scale my impact in a more meaningful way? For me, that was book publishing and speaking and being on stages. And now it's funny because I'm like, I get on an airplane, I fly to a city, I stand on a stage, I present a talk, and it's like I'm giving a concert for 45 minutes. Like I'm on stage in front of people giving a concert, basically. But instead, it's a concert of ideas. But it's the same kind of thing. I'm making people laugh, and I'm making them think, and I'm making them sometimes cry. But like that's what I'm doing. I'm sort of doing a little performance for people, and it's all founded on like research and my books and all that stuff. But I'm really kind of doing the same thing. It's just I'm doing it in a very different forum. So that would be my encouragement to people. Would just be think about what are those threads? What are those threads that tie the moments of significance together in your life, and how might you be able to apply those in a different context? You've done this so well over the course of your career, right? Like the things that you do really well, and you've applied it in so many different contexts. I think that we all have that capability. It's just that we get into this modal form of thinking where it's like,
yes,
like to your point about identity, I am as opposed to my creativity finds expression through, right? So I am a musician as opposed to, no, my creativity right now is finding expression through music, but it could find expression in a lot of different ways. I could express it through writing books, or through leading an organization, or building a business, or creating a brand, or whatever, making a cup of coffee, right? Like these are all forms of expression for our creativity. So that would be my advice, would be just look for those moments of resonance and then think about how they apply in other contexts.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you. I'll tell you, Todd, something that I picked up early on from your first book. And I think I've read all of them. I've gone through the titles. But what really jumped out at me was, honestly, it was intimidating how articulate your writing is. I just thought, wow, this is not just a casual 10 ways to become more successful, or that has continued to really speak to me and impress me and even challenge me in whatever expression I'm currently in. I've got 2 or 3 or 4 things that I do that are part of my pie that has pretty much been part of my life since 25 years or so. But how do you develop that? Like, and I know not everybody's going to write as articulately as you, but wow, there's just such passion in it, but there's also such knowledge in it, such wisdom in it. How did that come about? How do you develop that?
Well, first of all, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. And I'm writing to people like you, like you're my intended audience, smart people who are very capable and successful and get it, people who get it. I'm not trying to get somebody off the couch. I'm not trying to get somebody to like do the first act of the will ever in the course of their life. Like if you're already moving and you're trying to do things and you have ambition and you're talented, that's who I'm writing to. So The fact that it resonated with you makes me feel good because that's what I'm trying to do. Couple of things. First of all, I spend a lot of time thinking, way too much time thinking about these things, and observing and noticing things. So that's the first part of it, is just there's a lot of, I don't just sit down to write. By the time I sit down to write, I've spent a tremendous amount of time thinking and observing. So that's the first thing. The second thing I would say is, and I think this applies both to my writing, but also to music. There are 2 points. One is you have to have a point of view. I think what you're sensing in my writing, with you saying it's articulate, is, in a way, I think what you're saying is that it's precise, which I'm trying to be very precise in how I communicate. And I think that precision is really important. I think it's important that you're precise, that you have a point of view, and that your point of view is precise. It's not wishy-washy. To your point, the 10 ways to do this or do that, that's usually a cop-out, because that, like, if it's 10, you haven't thought enough. Wow. It should be like 1 or 2, right? It shouldn't be like 10 ways to. You have to have a point of view. And so that's one thing. The second thing, and I think this is something we don't think about enough. Unfortunately, it's not very common in today's world, which is you have to respect your audience. You have to respect the people who are giving you their time and their attention. And so if I put something out, it's going to be really well thought out. It's going to be really well edited. It's going to be what I think is the most concise way that I can say it, so that I'm not just padding it to make it, fill a certain page count, which is another thing you find in the publishing world, is like you're kind of filling it out just to hit a certain number of pages so you can sell the book for $30 or whatever. If I'm writing something, I'm going to make it as concise as possible. I'm going to say it in as few words and as few pages as I can, because I respect my audience. They're busy people and they're successful people. And they also are able to fill in the dots. I don't have to spell everything out for them. I can say something in a concise and precise way, and they'll understand it, or they'll apply it to their situation. And I think there's a lot of writing that doesn't respect the audience. That doesn't respect the intellect of the audience, the emotional intelligence, the intuition of the audience. And I think that's true in music as well. And I think that's one of the things that, like, we love about really great music, is that it just feels like it's really well thought out. It's really well crafted. Like last night I was playing a video for my son, who's home for spring break from South Carolina. I was playing a video of him, of Mike Campbell from Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Right. And now Mudcrutch. Or Mudcrutch, and then what's the new? They have a new band, right?
Yes, I just heard an interview with him. I'm a fan.
Yeah, same here. But he was telling the story of writing the song "Boys of Summer" by Don Henley. So he was the one who came up with the song. He was playing around with the Linn drum. Came up with the drum pattern and like the guitar riff and all that, and took it to Jimmy Iovine and Tom Petty, and they're like, well, this feels a little too jazzy for what we're doing right now. So they kind of shelved it for a couple of days. And then Don Henley was looking for songs for his new record. So Jimmy Iovine's like, hey, come on over. Let's play it for Don. So they went over, and Don Henley sat with it, just sat and listened to the demo. It was just like the guitar riff and the drums, like nothing else really. Just maybe Mike Campbell going like, like just like sort of whatever. Wow. So he just kind of sat there, and he's like, okay, all right. Let me see what I can do with it. I'll let you know. As he was on the way home, he called Mike Campbell and was like, I just wrote the best song I've written in years. We're going to record this song. So it became Boys of Summer. But the reason I began telling that story is like he's telling this story about how, like, all the things that they had to do in order to get that song recorded. And they spent weeks recording it. And then Don Henley came in and said, I want to raise the key because I feel like I can get something more out of my voice if we take it up, a couple of keys. So they had to re-record the whole thing. The Linn drum machine almost didn't work. It worked one time. They kept trying to load it. They couldn't get the cassette. Like, you had to store it on a cassette. They tried to get it to load. It wouldn't load. This video, by the way, you have to go find this. This is amazing how he tells the story. I have to see this. but it finally loaded one time, and he said, "Okay, roll the tape because this might be the only take we get." It was literally the only take that worked of all of it, and it's what's on the record. And then as they were running the master, the paper started peeling off the back of the tape. And so a guy was going along and like gluing the tape back on, or gluing the paper back on the tape as the master was going around. It went around one time, and that's the master. Otherwise, the song like wouldn't exist, kind of thing. And so when you hear all this stuff happening, and you're just like, and then Mike Campbell drops the kicker at the very end. He's like, and so I'm grateful for that song. It became a big hit, and it allowed me to buy the house that was about to be foreclosed on. And I was like, here's a guy who had written Refugee for Tom Petty. He was out touring with Tom Petty. They were doing all this stuff, and his home was about to be foreclosed on. And this song literally like saved his home for his family, kind of thing. And so when I talk about like respecting your audience, and you hear stories of what goes into some of these classic songs, like Don Henley coming in after 2 weeks of recording and saying, you know what, we're going to go back and re-record the whole song because I want to take it up a couple keys because I really feel like I can get more out of my voice if we take it up a couple keys. Like people might be like, oh, what a prima donna. Oh, what a diva. No. He respected the audience. He was like, listen, this is going to be a way better song if I put all the effort in. Is anybody going to notice if I don't? Probably not. But the smart, savvy people will notice. Like my audience will notice. I need to respect my audience enough to put my best foot forward on this. And so we're going to do that. And so I heard that story, and it just reminded me of what we were just talking about, which is anything we do, Lionel, we have to respect the audience. That has to be the primary thing, is like, am I just putting this out because I want to make some money, or because I need to put something out? Or am I putting this out because this is really something I've crafted for the smart, savvy people in my audience, and I want them to have something that's valuable for them. Anyway, so that would be my thing. Point of view, and then make sure that you respect your audience. I think are the two big things to answer your question.
I hear you saying two things and over here in our conversation. First of all, there's no way around the work. It's work. And anybody that doesn't think creative endeavors are work, I kind of think they've never done it, because it's work. But the other thing I'd love to get your take on this. There's a thing I love about the era we're in now with music. And I've been really fortunate. I'm a big believer in having not just older mentors, but younger mentors, because they both reveal my blind spots. But your comment, and I read this just the other day, I think it was in Louder Than Words, is that point of view. One of my least favorite things about the old model that you and I both came up in the music business, and I get it, it is the music business, but Seth Godin was one of the first people to really start using a bolt cutter in my soul on this. And that was trying to please the masses, as opposed to, as Louder Than Words just hits on so well, finding your own voice. But part of finding your own voice, I just think it's really worth focusing on this just for a second, is the courage to have that point of view. Yes. Because in the old model, that, especially when you have Garth Brooks across the street selling 15 million albums,
right?
The business side of it, again, I am never judging. I'm not damning that. But one of my favorite writers right now is Jason Isbell, and his new record, as we record this, just came out. And I sent it to a friend of mine, a Hall of Fame songwriter. And you got to hear this. It was a song called Gravelweed. And he wrote me right back. He's like, it's just another level.
Yeah.
But another thing I've learned from Isbell is he doesn't preach his point of view, but he never hides his point of view.
Well, there's an authenticity that comes with that you can't fake.
That's it.
Right. And I think that's why his work resonates so much with people, is because I mean, he kind of just like lives his life wide open, and his music is a reflection of like where he came from, and he doesn't try to hide it, and he's not trying to win fans. He's just kind of being himself, and
But Todd, the thing, and I think Godin was on this way early, but now we're in a ecosphere that you can do that. If you can find an audience, and he owns his masters, he owns his publishing. I mean, I know not everybody can do that, but that's so inspiring to me. Even at my stage of the game, I love seeing that that's a thing,
I agree. I took my son, my oldest, who you've met, Ethan, who's a musician. We went to see Jason Isbell. We brought one of his friends, and actually opening the show, this is hilarious to me. The show opener was Marty Stewart. And I was telling my son, I'm like, this is a country music Hall of Fame artist opening for another artist, which is just, when you think about it, it's just absolutely hilarious. But also, Marty Stewart has a great, like a phenomenal point of view.
Yes.
Like he's another example of somebody who just has over and over in his career, like, and now I'm going to make a bluegrass concept album, right?
Yes.
And now I'm going to, I don't know, I'm just going to record. Like he just is a guy who just does his own thing, right? Which is kind of cool. And I think that's why that was a good match. Actually, I think him opening for Jason Isbell was a good match. But
totally,
to your point about Isbell's songwriting, I mean, there are very few songwriters ever. There are very few songs I've ever heard that have made me cry. And Isbell has 2/3 of them, right? For real. Like the first time I heard If We Were Vampires, and I know that's not even like Elephant's probably the one that most people think of that makes them like, but the first time I heard that song, first time I heard that line, I'm getting teary just thinking about it. Like I immediately thought about my wife. I immediately thought about like, we're not going to be together forever. Like it just, but he doesn't ever say that. It's just, so again, respecting your audience. He doesn't spell it out. He just paints a picture and lets you fill in the dots, right? Or whatever, or fill in the colors. Like he does the little outlines and you fill in the colors. And, I think great art, great creativity is not a monologue. It's a dialogue between the artist and the audience. A great book is not a monologue. It's a dialogue. And if you respect your audience, you think about, if I were sitting across from them, what kind of conversation would I be having with them? Would I be screaming at them about cut off jeans and pickup trucks, or would I be having like a more nuanced conversation with them? And I feel like that's what great music does, right? It evokes, it doesn't provoke, it evokes something in you, meaning, provocation is I'm just going to poke you and I'm going to prod you and I'm going to make you feel something. Evoking means I'm going to put something out there and draw something out of you that's going to create a conversation. It's evocative. And I feel like Isbell is one of those evocative songwriters that just, and there are certain, but I mean, we've talked about my love of Thomas Merton, the great mystic and monk. I love Merton. I've given New Seeds of Contemplation out to so many people as a gift. And I think, we talk about Seth Godin. I think what great writers do is they evoke something in us that they don't provoke, they evoke. And that's what I aspire to do with my writing. I want to evoke a response from people because I really do think that great writing is a dialogue, not a monologue.
Well, you do that. I'm telling you, you do that. I've never heard it put that way. That's beautiful. So Todd, how long have you guys been married?
Almost 25 years.
So you do this epic transition. I'm sorry, I think it is, out of a musical career, but you find your voice, you find your outlet, you find your application. But even with that, I'm sure, maybe even more with the road you've gone down, there's all kinds of demands coming at you on a daily basis. So in regards to work-life balance, you love what you do. You have a passion for what you do, and you show up and you you execute your practices on a daily basis, you travel, you write. All of these are demanding. How have you found to harmonize that with your other role? And that was a breakthrough for me, just seeing the word role as opposed to identity.
Mm-hmm.
But to harmonize your role as a creator, as a author, all your professional stuff with being a husband, with being a father, and being fully present in those roles. Talk to us about that, because I feel like I've not met your wife yet, met your son, which was wonderful, but I feel like you've done that well also, and that in itself is such an art. Love to hear you speak to that.
Well, it's hard. Like, I very rarely will talk about or give any advice related to marriage or family, because
Sure.
I always feel like there's always that. I'm always a little I look side eye at people who write books about like marriage or parenting, because I'm always like, I mean, there's always still a chance my kids could end up being terrors at some point. Like you never really know how it's like. The game's not over yet, kind of thing. Or that things can happen and marriages can dissolve and whatever. But absolutely. I would say, so first of all, I know we've talked about this as well. Like, just, I won the lottery when I met my wife, like 100%. Like, I think, I know we've had that conversation before. Like, so much of people, I think, get married because they're enraptured with someone. Mm. And they don't think enough about, is this a person of character? Is this a person I can grow a life with? Because you don't architect or build a life, you grow it together. Mm. And is this a person I can grow, that I would want to grow a life with? Is this a person I would want to be the mother or the father of my children? Like, do they exhibit the character qualities I would want to see in a family? Do they support my ambitions, but do they also speak truth to me? And so I think that's the first thing I would say is just like, to your point, marriage is not 50-50. It's like 100-100. It feels like it's 170 and 30. And, and usually I'm the 30 in that situation where, so I would say, that's the most important thing, is just to recognize that parenting and marriage and everything, it is, I say this about culture. So any of my clients listening will be like, wait a minute, you said that about our corporate culture last week. I'm like, well, yeah, because I think it's kind of the same thing. Like, a family is a culture. You grow it like a garden. You don't architect it. You don't build it. You don't just come in after 15 years of neglect and suddenly it's like, okay, now we're going to have a great family. No, like if you don't have 15 years of consistent seeds being planted, if you're not pruning consistently, if you're not fertilizing the right things, and I see that with a lot of my corporate, some of my corporate clients, where like you can just kind of tell, they're gone all the time. They're never home. They're like, well, someday when things settle down, then I'll invest in the family. And things are not going to ever settle down.
Wow.
So that would be my encouragement, would just be, think very strategically about, what do you want? What do you want this culture of a family to look like? What do you want your marriage to look like? What do you want this culture of a family to look like? What would be the exhibit? What would be the character traits I would want in children? Because they're all going to be different in how they articulate those character traits. My 3 kids could not be more different, but there are certain qualities we want to see in them. And so, are you planting seeds in them every day? Are you cultivating the garden? Are you occasionally pruning and weeding when you see things you don't want? Right. One of the things that was important to us when we were really young, was when our kids were young, I should say, and we were young parents, was like, we're not going to stick an iPad in our kids' hands at the restaurant to keep them quiet. Like, we're going to make them do 2 things. Number one, they're going to sit with the adults at the table and they're going to have a conversation just like adults do. So from a very early age, when our kids were like 5, 6, 7 years old, they were sitting at the table, engaging in conversation with the other adults at the table. And the second thing is they're not ordering off the kids menu. They're going to order off the adult menu, and we're going to teach them how to order off the adult menu and how to be, and in some ways, and by the way, that is like my wife has been, she has certain things that she has instilled in our family, that have been, one of them is, and this was important to her early on, it's like, we're going to do family dinner every night, 6:00 family dinner. Everything like after family dinner, you can do whatever you got to do. You can do your homework. You can do we'll split up for the night. That's fine, whatever. But there's not going to be any of this like rushing in, grabbing a plate, scraping something off the plate, and then like running to do no, we're going to sit down. We're going to do family dinner. And so it's funny because my kids all knew like, practice is over. You had to be home by 6 because we have family dinner every single night when the kids were in the house. And our dining room, actually, there's a window looking out on our front lawn, and all of our kids' friends would be like, your family's always eating. Well, no, it's just because like when you come home, like you're like, we're sitting down for dinner. Like that's what we do. Right. So that was really important. And that was just a way for us to have at least that time together every single day, Beautiful. At least that time to connect. So, little things like that, just figure out what kind of culture you want, plant those seeds, consistently prune the things you don't want to see, and just make sure that you're consistently shaping and refining the culture of your marriage and shaping and refining the culture of the family the way that you want it to be. And you'll grow a beautiful garden. And the reality is, like, listen, kids struggle, and there are kids who have all kinds of maybe emotional issues or maybe psychological issues. I mean, things can happen, right? I mean, it's just the result of the world that we live in. So it's not like foolproof advice, but if you want to set yourself up for the best possible chance of having success, I think you have to think about it kind of like a garden, and you have to start cultivating it from day one. And I think that's the best way to think about it.
Wow. I hear experience in that. I hear love in that. That's beautiful. I don't know about you. Well, I do know about you, but boy, I'm so grateful at this point, with no judgment towards anyone, because listen, everybody's got their own path, but
yeah,
those relationships with our kids are so important to me. And the Grammys that never came, or the CMAs that never came, are just fine. I mean, truly. Well, I've respected that in you, and I've seen that in you, and I think that's another reason we've become good friends. Is that was important to me. And I knew it, just like you knew it, like, I'm not sure. When our first baby came, when Mason came, I knew, I was like, after all that talk, like, yeah, I'm doing what I was supposed to do. And it's like, I don't know if I'm wired to do this. I don't know if I'm wired to be gone all the time. And again, zero judgment to anybody else. I'm talking about software. I'm talking about my wiring, like you said, your wiring. But I do think there's a way to harmonize it, and it does take work, and it's not easy. The first thing you said was it's hard.
It is.
But
and the other thing I'll
worth
say is, like, your kids should see you working hard. Like, that's the other thing. Like it's occasionally fine if you miss stuff. Like if I miss a game, or I miss a meet, or I miss a concert, or I miss a something, because I'm off, like, pursuing the thing that I'm called to, right? Like, that's not a bad thing. It's important for your kids to see that you're working hard, and that you have other things in your life than just the family. Because
Todd,
you want them to be the same. Like, you want them to pursue things.
Totally. I think it's really fair to say, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, that sometimes, we hear about saying no, but to not becoming a workaholic and saying no, but sometimes it means saying no to your family.
Sometimes, yeah, for sure. Especially in ways that are, was it Michael Dyson? I forget the guy's name. He was like the CEO. I think he was the CEO of Coca-Cola. He had this rubber ball, glass ball thing that he did. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but he said, in your life, you're going to juggle a bunch of balls. And he said, some of those balls are made out of rubber and some of them are made out of glass.
Wow.
And when you're juggling those balls, occasionally you might have to let some balls drop. And some of the balls are rubber, and it's okay to let those rubber balls drop because they're going to bounce right back up. But some of them are made out of glass, and those are the things you can't drop, right?
Amazing.
So, like, for example, would I miss one of my son's basketball games because I need to go like make a living to support the family? And, yeah, I would. Would I miss my son's graduation? No, that's probably more of a glass ball, right? Like that's a like a life marking moment that you're just you're never going to get back, right? And family is a glass ball, right? Like, would I do something that I know is going to irreparably damage my relationship with my family in order to pursue my career? No, of course not. That's a glass ball. It's never going to bounce back up. My career is probably going to bounce back up. I'm going to have other opportunities. Things are going to happen. So I've always thought about that. Again, I think his last name's Dyson. I've always thought about that analogy because I think it's like a really good one for thinking about, okay, is this a rubber ball or is this a glass ball? Is this a ball I can drop, or is this a ball that if I drop it, it's going to shatter and it's going to be irreparable? And unfortunately, I think a lot of people treat their family like a rubber ball because their family's always going to be there. So they just assume like I can treat my family like a rubber ball because they're going to be there. And we'll pick it up later. But that's not really the way it works. You don't really get that time back. You don't get those relationships back. You're going to come back to a very weedy garden if you're not careful.
That's really good. It's funny. Before I even moved from West Virginia, Tammy Wynette had a song called "Dear Daughters." You talk about a song that'll make you cry. I was probably 19 or 20 when I heard that song, and I knew then, I thought, and the song's, I think, unapologetically a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
And that always stuck with me. But yeah, that's such, wow, glass and rubber balls. That's really good.
Yeah.
Hey, before we wrap this up, what have you got going on? Like, what can we look for from Todd Henry in 2025?
Yeah, so the podcast is still going strong. Daily Creative is the new name. It used to be called The Accidental Creative. I've changed that to Daily Creative. So that's still available wherever. Just got back from doing 9 keynotes in 14 days. So I'm still out on the road doing a lot of, as a matter of fact, it's funny now that the family is all like the kids are almost out of the house. I'm actually starting to take on more travel and speaking and stuff because of that, because I can scale a little more now. My wife's like, she sleeps really well when I'm not here. So she's like, yes, as much as you want to travel, that's great. Right.
Sure.
So there's a chance I'll be speaking somewhere near, so be watching for that if I'm speaking at a conference or something near where you are.
Do you post your itinerary anywhere?
I don't publish that actually. I probably should publish that, but I don't publish that. And then my new book is The Brave Habit, which came out last year, and it's about courageous leadership. It's about the principles that lead to making brave decisions in your life every day, not just as a leader, but as a human being, as a neighbor, as a coworker. How can we position ourselves to make brave decisions with our work? So The Brave Habit is available wherever books are sold.
Well, as someone who's been nourished by your work, man, I just want to say thank you. And I'll put links in the show notes here to your website and a lot of your work. But if you're just discovering Todd Henry, I highly encourage you, do yourself a favor. And his books are like multivitamins for creatives. But Todd, thank you so much for being on Off the Charts here. It's just such a pleasure and a privilege to have you on. Gosh, thank you is not good enough, but thank you for the way you've spoken into my life.
Oh man, it has been a joy getting to know you, and same for you. I mean, you've been an encouragement to me over the course of the last several years that we've known each other, and it's been a joy to continue to watch you put work into the world. And I think this is going to be another example of Lionel Cartwright influencing the very world around him. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. Every time I read something Todd Henry wrote or have a conversation with him, once again, I'm impressed by how articulate he is and what a deep well he's drawing from on all things creative. Wow, I really hope you were encouraged by this. And if you have had a dream that has seemed to peter out or just not work out, like my first manifestation of my dream didn't work out, I hope this will encourage you not to just give up on creativity, on something you love doing, the thing you love doing. I hope you'll still pursue it, no matter how it gets expressed, in what station of life and in what avenue that opens up for you. Keep going, okay? Thanks so much for jumping in with me. Go make something.